Want to level up your leadership? Welcome to The Boss Coach.
A dash of cool, a splash of class. The boss coach leads, no time to pass. Oh, the boss coach, the leader's guide with swagger, style, and strength.
You know, I just want to reiterate that I did not write the lyrics to the theme song. I don't know if I've ever said I did, but I didn't. One of the weirder lines in there is, in the Boss Coach Lounge, you're never alone. Just to be clear, full transparency, there is no Boss Coach Lounge. But there should be, right? Yeah, come think of it. I'll get right on that. A little fair warning, I'm kind of fighting some kind of a bug. It's affected my voice, so if I sound a little different today, you'll know why, and hopefully I'll be back to square one next week. So hey boss, how's business? Are you launching a new product or service in the near future? That's always fun, a lot of stuff to do. Having new things is invigorating, and it kind of helps to make you more excited about going to work. I remember as a kid, I always asked a lot of questions, but this one that I came up with was, how long can something be considered new? You know, you see a commercial, it'll be new and improved. How long can you call it new? And nobody knew the answer, and they also asked me to stop asking so many questions. That's my childhood for you. All right, well, thanks for clicking and listening. My name is Patrick McGranahan. Welcome back to The Boss Coach. If you're new to the show, check out the podcast trailer. That is episode 100. It gives you some background on what The Boss Coach is all about, what I'm trying to do, and what you can expect from this glorious little show. All right, well, let's jump right into today's topic. You know, Mike Tyson said, everyone has a plan until you get punched in the face. And I know we've all been metaphorically punched in the face in our own workplace, right? I don't mean losing a job. I mean like working through some type of emergency or a crisis or a hardship at work. So like, what do I mean by that? Oh, you know, it depends on your industry, but we're talking about, how about like a cybersecurity threat? That'll bring everything to its knees. A technological failure. Had one of those in my work just today. Natural disaster even can do it. I've seen that, especially wildfires affecting some of our offices. Maybe a criminal event. Maybe you've been the target of a crime. Supply chain disruption. That happened during COVID, of course. Personnel misconduct. Oh boy, that's a bad one. Company reputation event that hits the news and makes everything kind of embarrassing and awkward. Or even a big economic crisis. You know, I don't get too specific about what I do or where it's at, but I'm in the financial sector and investments. And I was here in 2008 when the big bubble burst. That was so much fun. I ended up playing therapist/bartender to financial planners while I was running the trading team. The market was up, the market was down. It was so volatile, very, very stressful, a lot of fear of trade errors and such. But the company eventually navigated through it just fine. We made it through that period. It was very well run, and so we rebounded. It was wonderful. But of course, in the middle of it, you don't always see that it's going to end up being okay. So the question today is, how do you lead effectively through a crisis? But the number one thing that determines how you and your team really survive a crisis like this is just being prepared. You know, not just a business continuity plan that your company does or a BCP, but your own personal playbook. And that's what we're doing today, boss. We're giving you the 3-step plan. You know, when the going gets tough, the tough get going. And here to help me today is someone who's been, through everything I have for the past about 19 years. We started at the company about the same time. We're kind of work siblings. She's a very skilled leader and VP who's seen her share of crisis management. Please welcome a true boss, Lesa Hoffman.
Oh, Patrick, I'm so excited to be here. And I love that we are work siblings. That's the perfect description of our journey together.
Right? And sometimes I like you more than my real siblings.
I can relate to this.
Just kidding. They listen. I love you all. So thank you so much for jumping in here. You know, we've seen some stuff, haven't we?
We have.
What do you think has been your most difficult crisis to get through?
Yeah, so that's an interesting question, Patrick, because we have run the gamut here. There are a lot, I feel like, that I could choose from here, but I think the most difficult one is probably one of the first ones that I was really faced with working together here. And that's when we had our founder really start stepping out of the picture and kind of, you know, relinquishing his role in the company and us transitioning really to a whole new set of C-suite leaders. I think that was probably the first big one I think that I've had to tackle here.
Yeah, I remember that one. And it was, I think it qualifies as a crisis.
Yep, I think so, because it really changed it. It shifted everybody's mindset. When you think when you join a company and it's founder led, you just feel like they're going to be here forever, right? You're all going to grow old and gray together, and that's not always what happens.
I know, it's sort of like a business divorce. It's kind of sad.
It is exactly.
How'd you know what to do at the time? Was it just instinct?
You know, I don't know if it was instinct or some things I'd learned along the way, probably a combination of both, but it's one that, you know, I knew that I wanted to stay at the company, right? And I knew that a lot of things were changing. So you kind of hearken on other experiences that you've had, whether you worked at other companies or even in your personal situation, and you try to tap into what you know best. And I think that's kind of what got me through.
Oh, great. That really checks out with, I know going through that issue, I could tell that's what you really tapped into. All right, well, we promised our listeners that we'd deliver a three-step plan to lead us through a crisis. So, Lisa, what have you got for us?
Okay, so I would say the first one, and I've learned, the hard way sometimes, but to really focus on what you can control. And what I mean by that is sometimes I want to go stay in your lane. I think that's probably too much of a broad of a stroke, but it's really focus on what you were hired to do, what you bring to the table, and really do your best at that. And if you do that, that tends to quiet out all the noise and the state of influx that's happening around you. So that's kind of been my key thing. It's like, okay, get back to the basics. Why am I here? What was I hired to do? That's what I can control. That's the narrative I can control. If I try to focus and control everybody else, it's going to be a hot mess, put it that way.
Yeah, and so when you're leading people, it's kind of easy to convince yourself that just to control what you can. How do you sort of get that message across to the people that report to you?
Yeah, kind of the same thing, right? So, when I'm trying to guide a team through whatever it is that we're going through, and in that case situation, that person that was kind of at the helm was leaving, and that was tough, right? So again, it's talking to them through what's going on. Like, this is what's going on. We see these changes happening around us, but at the same time, we know that we've got to come in every day and do the best for our clients and do what we were hired to do. And that's hard sometimes, right? Because we want to listen to the noise and we want to get sucked into the drama and all of that. But it's really kind of like being with them, being in the trenches, and just still coming into work and doing what we were paid to do on any given day. And sometimes it can be hard because you want to get sucked into the drama and all that kind of stuff. But you really gotta really stay focused on what you know you can do to make a difference every day.
Got it. Like one of our bosses said before, make the main thing the main thing.
Yeah, absolutely.
Good. All right, well, what's your second one?
The second one is really about vulnerability. So, and I say that to mean, use that to your advantage. So, I don't know if you
Interesting.
remember. I'm sure you and I have been through some session management training session together at some point in time, leadership, where they've done that curve, and it's like a change curve, and where the different phases, like when you're in shock that something happened, some change has come your way, or you're in denial about it. And then there's some people call it the valley of death or the valley of desperation, right? And it's kind of going through all those phases. And that, to me, being transparent to my team at any given time on where I was at has always tended to help me and help them navigate through that change. Because what I found is that if I try to be a cheerleader through change that maybe I'm suffering through, they're gonna see right through me, right? It's
Right.
I'm not authentic. They're like, you're just putting on a happy face, but you don't really mean it, that type of thing. So when I've been really able to go, you know what, I'm struggling right now too. Like, I'm with you. Like right now, if I look at this chart here or whatever, I'm in the valley of death right now, and this is why I'm there. And talking to them and going, like, where are you at? And not everybody's in the same place at any given time, but being transparent about where you are kind of on that curve has always helped me, I think, gain their trust through whatever we were going through. And then I would be there with them through that path, that journey that we're on.
Yeah, that's true. That transparency and that, like you called it, the vulnerability. Because personally, I know I have nightmares about the S curve still, but
Mhm.
but I
Yeah,
think that really it goes with the theme that you've been saying so far, which is all about authenticity. And so you're being
yeah,
authentic with them, and therefore you're going to get their buy-in.
exactly. Exactly.
Awesome. Okay, well, what's the third thing we can do?
So the third one is what I call API, or assume positive intent. If you're in the technology world, that means something completely different. But for this
Yes.
purpose, I have coached a lot of people through this, and I've done a lot of self-talk for myself on this. And that's always to try to believe that when things are happening, and especially when bad things, or sometimes I call them zingers, are being thrown your way, to assume positive intent in what's coming to you. Always, because I think just generally, I think as humans, maybe it's just me, maybe and that's how I'm wired, but generally I think we go to the negative, or what does this person mean? Or this person's trying to ruin my day, or this person's just trying to make my life miserable, right? And that's not really typically, usually what the message was intended to be when it comes your way. So I always try to like assume positive intent, put myself in that person's shoes that's bringing that message or that change or whatever to me, and try to see it broader than just my own from my own angle, I guess, all about me, right? Trying to see the broader picture. So that seems to have helped. I've guided a lot of team members through that. They'll pull up an email, for example, and they'll be all upset about this, and I'll be like, well, let's talk about that. Like, where do you think they're coming from? And when you can talk about that and see a different angle and paint a different picture, then they can step back and go, oh, okay, I see it. This tone, maybe I took this tone out of character, or maybe this just rubbed me the wrong way. But if you take that out of it and just assume that they didn't mean bad by it, then your response will be different back to them and change the course of that exchange of messages or whatever it happens to be, if that makes sense.
It does, and it's really just an extrapolation of an empathy exercise. I mean, to an extreme degree, and employing that to really help get yourself through the situation, because we all know there are some people I can right now on our email. If I see it, I'm not going to assume positive intent. So,
Yep.
so I understand coaching others to do that. How do you push yourself when you know that there might be that name that pops up that you're going to cringe at?
Oh, I mean, still to this day, you're right. You have that one person or that sends you the message, and I really stop and I pause. I mean, to this day, there's certain people that I know if I get a message from that person, I'm going to stop and I'm going to pause and I'm going to reflect that I know this person is always coming from this angle, right? That they mean well. This is just their delivery. Don't take it personally. Just answer the question. And 9 times out of 10, I mean, almost 100% of the time, they'll come back to you and it's a completely different. Like if I just respond like there was no maybe attitude or tone and I'm fine, then they respond back with no tone or anything. So it's just, give what you want to receive back. And again, just don't overthink it. 9 times out of 10, they're not thinking bad about you. They're not thinking where you think that they're thinking about. Again, just stop, pause, reflect before you start typing and send a nastygram, because you don't want to do that.
As the kids say sometimes, look, it's just not that deep.
It's not that deep. There you go. You got the better lingo than I do.
You're so right, though. Like it's easy to take it personally, and you shouldn't.
Yeah. And you shouldn't.
You just shouldn't. Oh my
Yeah.
gosh.
Time wasted.
Lisa, you're like the Mel Robbins of business. I love it. All right, so the playbook is focus on what you can control,
Yep.
leverage vulnerability to your advantage,
Absolutely.
and assume positive intent.
Yep. I like it. I got it.
Yeah.
That's it.
That is terrific. But before you go, though, any last advice, especially for those younger leaders out there who are facing their first real crisis?
It's going to be hard, right? If it's a crisis, it's not going to be easy. So just know that going into it. It's going to test your character, and that's okay, because it's going to help you to figure out who you are, how you're wired. And just, again, I can say phone a friend, right? If you find out you're getting in that valley of death, you can't get out, you're in that state of desperation, you need to reach out to somebody, right? Find a mentor at work, somebody else that you've seen kind of go through some crises and do it pretty well. Reach out to them and see what they've done to help through. And then I always say, when you get to the other side, have a moment of reflection with yourself, because I guarantee you there's something that you did that was really awful. I mean, there always is. And then you can reflect and you're like, but this is the part that I did really, really well. And okay, next time going forward, I'm not going to do that thing that I didn't do so well again. I'm going to make sure that doesn't happen the next time I'm faced with another crisis. So I always feel like reflection helps.
I love that idea. You have your own little post game after the fact, and you're right about your opportunities and your wins.
Exactly. You got it.
Well, Lisa, thank you again for joining me today. The conversation has just been such a pleasure. I always appreciate our partnership, not just today, but the past 19 years. And it's just really, it's great to speak to you. And thank you again.
You're very welcome. I'm so glad to be part of this wonderful thing you're doing, Patrick. So keep on doing good.
I will. I'll try at least.
All right. Thank you so much.
Lisa. Okay, great dialogue with Lisa, huh? I hope that really helps you to view crisis situations through a little bit of a different lens. Not just at work, you can apply these to a personal crisis as well, really. I've told you a story about the flood I went through when I was younger, so let me share a different one this time, and we'll see how I followed that playbook, even though I didn't necessarily know I was doing it at the time. So back in 2005 or 6, I did a brief stint in the subprime mortgage industry. I was in compliance. Now, if you're thinking back in your head, what was going on in subprime mortgages back in 2005 and 6? It wasn't good. I remember bundling up a bunch of mortgages to sell off to some of those companies you've heard of, and looking around saying, is this okay? We knew it was all falling apart, though, when they brought in a bunch of lawyers and then got rid of compliance all at once. We knew something was going to be bad there. And that all set up, of course, the real estate crisis that we dealt with a couple of years later that I mentioned earlier, the bubble burst. So I was there on both sides of the equation. It wasn't a big surprise at the time. But as far as the crisis goes, we had 5 kids at home at the time, and including one baby, and I'm out of work. So what do you do? How do you lead the family when you're kind of worried about how you're going to eat that week? So to get the point across, at dinner one night, I was serving up their plates, and I purposely put half of what I would normally put on their plate and handed it to them. They kind of gave me a weird look. Finally, about the third plate through, they said, hey, what's going on? You didn't give me very much. And I said, well, that's to demonstrate what we're dealing with right now. We lost my income, and now we're working on half the income. So seeing what's on your plate, that's the capacity we have right now. You need to understand that we're under some limitations. We're going to get through it, but this is what we're dealing with. And it really, I think, drove it home. But past that then, how did I go through the playbook? Well, number one, we focus on what we can control. All right, what can I do in this situation? I can't get the job back. That's gone. I can, however, escalate my job hunt, make it my full-time 9-to-5 job. I was on recruiting sites, obviously doing interviews. I can also control my attitude. I can lay around and say, oh, poor me, I got laid off. They shouldn't have done that. The mortgage industry is corrupt, whatever. But nope, I can control my attitude, so I just said, we're going to get through this. I'm going to find a better job. And of course, I did, because I've been here over 19 years now. All right, number 2 of the playbook is leverage vulnerabilities. So I would say that showing them, like Lesa talked about, showing the kids that, look, we're going through some stuff too. We're stressed. We are also worried and concerned. Be vulnerable for them. And then they, in return, were really less demanding during that period. They were a little quicker to do their chores, a little quicker to get up in the morning. They were giving us some empathy, knowing what we're going through by showing them that vulnerability. And, I could also avoid some obligations too because of what I was dealing with. I was doing the job hunt. If anything else kind of took back seat until we got through that one big thing. So the vulnerability helped to drive the process forward. And finally, number 3, assume positive intent. Boy, this is, it's really easy to get defensive. For example, my wife would leave for work and say, well, what are you doing today? Well, if I'm being defensive, I say, well, I'm looking for a job, of course. What do you mean? What do you think I'm going to do? You think I'm going to lay around? No. Assume positive intent. So when she'd say that, I knew it was not judgmental. It was logistical. Oh, well, I have an interview at 3, so I'm going to be preparing for an hour before that, and then I'm going to put in job applications from about 9 to 11 and whatever. So I know it's all positive intent. So if I'm speaking to a prospective employer, in the back of my mind, I might be like, this isn't a real job, is it? It's already filled. You're just going through the steps. Nope. Assume positive intent. When they asked me a question in the interview, I took it exactly at face value and didn't try to evaluate it, run it through my silly, stupid Patrick filter, and it all turned out okay. Assuming that what they're saying is exactly what they mean really gets you through it. So control what you can control, leverage vulnerability, assume positive intent. That's what you can do. I can't stress this enough. It's critically important that you perform well in your job during a crisis. It can make or break your career at that company. And if you rally the team and you keep a calm head, execute the plan, show your leader that you're ready for the big time, you gain their respect. It's like they always say, never waste a good crisis. Okay, so here's what you can do right now to be sure that you can lead effectively during a crisis. You probably know what I'm going to say. Type out your 3-step playbook with your industry-specific reaction plan. So, number 1, focus on what you can control. What does it look like for you? What are you going to control? What are your levers that you can move that will help get you through the crisis? What are the things that are within your purview? And so on, so on. Just put in your playbook exactly how you will react to a crisis based on your job and your industry. And I guarantee you will thank me later, because when that first thing happens, when the natural disaster, when the economic downturn, when the criminal event, whatever, you want to be able to pull that file up and say, okay, I already know what I'm going to do. And immediately your people who report to you and the people you report to will be incredibly impressed that you are prepared for such a thing. Crisis mode doesn't have to mean failure mode. It is an opportunity to excel in a time of stress. Well, thank you for your time as always. I am Patrick McGranahan, the Boss Coach. Make sure to subscribe and thumbs up so you get notice of new episodes. Also, I love it when you share episodes with friends. That's how I get my subscribers up, and it's going great. So I really appreciate you. Help spread the word. It makes the Boss Coach message get out to as many people as need to hear it. Send me your comments too. I want to hear from you about future episodes. I've still got quite a list coming up that hopefully you'll enjoy, but I like to add to the end of the list too. So keep those coming. Well, until then, I'll see you next time on The Boss Coach. Hey, back to work, boss.
Thank you for joining us today for The Boss Coach, hosted by Patrick McGranahan. We'd also like to thank our associate producer, Hannah, and consulting contributor, Stephanie. Original music provided by Sono AI Studio. All statements and opinions by our host and guests are solely their own observations and may not reflect those of their contemporaries or employers. Please check out other episodes of The Boss Coach for more valuable opportunities to level up your leadership. Until next time, I am your announcer, Ava. Have a great day, and as always, lead with your heart.